Hi everyone, this is a brief banner analysis video for the upcoming banner featuring Seymour LD and Xcaliblur LD. I'll be starting off with Seymour first. Seymour is a magic DPS character with the added utility of debuffs in his arsenal as well. With his rework and his C90 that will be released alongside this banner, his damage gets bumped up considerably, more in line with the current meta, and the unique thing about his kit is that the weaker the enemy is, or the less HP the enemies is rather, the stronger his attacks will become, and he also has the ability to chain attacks if the enemy is weaker. The most notable thing about his kit though is his newly released LD weapon, which is a really loaded LD. First off, it dispels all buffs on all enemies, which is actually still quite an uncommon utility skill to have. Not many characters can actually dispel buffs in the game. Next, it does a considerable amount of damage as well, but it doesn't stop there. After doing damage, it also delays all enemies by 2 turns. Then, it will inflict his signature attack down, defense down, and max brave down debuffs on all enemies. And then it also adds a new debuff to all enemies called Now It's Time to Die. This new debuff is pretty unique because it actually gets stronger in potency the less HP the enemies have, and this frame debuff alone lowers the enemy's attack, brave damage resistance, and HP damage resistance. And at its highest potency, when enemies have less than 50% HP, the brave and HP damage resistance is lowered by a whopping 30% each. And that's not all. Finally, his LD also provides him a new framed buff called Prepare to Annihilate, and when the enemies are at below 50% HP, Prepare to Annihilate becomes Ready to Annihilate, and this actually gives him a new follow-up attack that triggers after every attack that he does, which further boosts his damage when enemies are at a lower HP state. This frame buff on himself also further boosts his brave and HP damage done and his brave stolen overflow amount. So all in all, I guess you can see why I said it's a pretty loaded LD, but it doesn't stop there. You also get access to many of these utility through his LD call as well. His LD call will still have the enemy-wide buff dispelling utility. It also delays all enemies by 2 turns, and it will also inflict his new framed debuff on all enemies, the one that increases in potency the weaker the enemies get. Having all this utility in a single LD call is pretty powerful, and he will actually be one of the better call abilities to use in the near future. In terms of cons, I think the biggest con is also tied to his gimmick, where he gets stronger the weaker the enemies is. This means that at the start of the fight, when the enemies have a lot of HP, he actually loses a little bit of his power, and depending on the fight, if say for example the enemies can shield themselves early on, or the enemies can heal themselves consistently, then you will see potential issues with his damage potency. Moving on to the next character on this banner, which is Xcaliblur. Xcaliblu's primary role is a support character that also has Brave Battery utility in her kit. Her LD weapon is not new, it's a rerun, and she will also be getting a rework on this event. Some notable things about her rework is that, for one thing, her stone ability will now delay by 2 turns instead of 1 turn. Her Medica will be instant turn if she has all her passives equipped, and her Medica will also have a stronger Brave Battery and healing component attached to it. Her LD will also become stronger in the sense that the Brave Battery component is larger, and the LD attack and her subsequent Afflatus Misery attack will also become stronger in potency. Overall, Xcaliblur functions very consistently. She can keep your party's brave amounts pretty high, she can heal and even revive units through her EX, and she has a little bit of delay utility through her stone skill and the fact that her LD will also cause rebreaks. The thing to note though is that she is also a BT character, but her burst weapon is not going to be featured on this banner. So if you want to fully build Xcaliblur, you will need to either wait for her burst weapon to rerun or BT token her burst weapon. In terms of support characters, she is one of the better support characters out there. The only thing I guess that doesn't work in her favor, and I know I've said this for many support characters out there, but it is true that all support characters face very tough competition with both Garnet and Ramza, who are both considered probably the best supports in the current meta. Being a BT weapon candidate as well, she does require the full investment to green her if you really want to use her at her highest potential. Coming to the value of the banner, for newcomers, I think this banner actually has a ton of value. First off, Seymour is a great DPS character, and the debuffs that he has, as well as the delay and buff dispelling utility, is pretty good to have. And on top of that, if you have Seymour built, you will at least also already have access to his LD call ability, which, as I mentioned, is one of the better call abilities in the current meta. Seymour being paired with Xcaliblur at least will provide you with a chance to access both a DPS character in Seymour and a support character in Xcaliblur, therefore allowing newcomers to quickly build a well-rounded team. Although this banner doesn't have Xcaliblur's burst weapon with it, Xcaliblur with just her LD functions as a mediocre, or I should say acceptable support character. She wouldn't be top tier without her BT, but she would still work across most of her kit. For veteran players, I still think this banner holds value, and the biggest value would really be Seymour's LD weapon and access to his LD call ability. The utility you get from this single LD call is really bonkers. Take for example other LD call abilities that can delay for 2 turns. Cloud's LD call delays for 2 turns and I guess also does some nice damage. Christie's delays by 2 turns and inflicts some debuffs. Ramza's delays by 2 turns and will launch the enemy. In comparison, when you use Seymour's LD call, he will dispel all enemies' buffs, delays by 2 turns, does some nice damage, and inflict his signature frame debuff, which again increases in potency the less HP the enemies have. At its highest potency, it offers a 30% breath and HP damage done up, which is really bonkers. Nothing much else compares to it in terms of a frame debuff that doesn't go away until the enemies take a number of turns. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you find the content useful, please leave a like, comment or subscribe. It really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!